What do you mean she slipped and kept working? Jared Alden's voice echoed in the quiet of his office. He was on a call with Rhonda, one of the few floor workers he had known from years ago when he first bought the company. She was retiring next month, but her tone on the phone had sounded off almost guilty. She didn't want to get in trouble, Rhonda said quietly. Said the supervisor told her to keep going or she'd be replaced. That stayed with Jared even after the call ended. He stared out of his office window, down at the list of 19 distribution centers his company owned. He hadn't visited most of them in person since the acquisition 7 years ago. Back then, the company had been crumbling. He'd bought it cheap, rebuilt the logistics, upgraded equipment, and hired a new executive team. But now, complaints were trickling in again. Delayed shipments, high turnover, a few workers quitting without notice. Jared had always believed in showing up, but somewhere along the way, he'd gotten stuck behind spreadsheets and quarterly calls. He stood up and made a decision. He'd go undercover again, but this time, fully committed. He picked the Jefferson facility, a large warehouse in Missouri, one of the busiest hubs, and the only one that hadn't had a visit from upper management in over 2 years. He'd never met most of the staff there. Turnover had been high, and the previous manager had been replaced with someone new 18 months ago. Easy to go in, unnoticed. Jared shaved his beard, dyed his hair darker, and wore thick-rimmed glasses. His name, for the week, would be Eric. He created a fake resume through a temp agency they used. No one questioned it. By Monday morning, he was standing in the break room of the Jefferson warehouse with a neon vest, steel-toed boots, and a clipboard. Eric, right? A woman in her early 30s approached him. She had sharp eyes, a tired smile, and her name tag read, Lena Graham. I'm shift lead. I'll show you the ropes. We're short today, so you'll be sweeping and keeping the loading zone clear. Jared nodded. Sounds good. Don't fall behind, she muttered, already turning away. Or Randy'll have your head. Who's Randy? You'll see. By noon, Jared's back ached. The floor was slick in places, the fans didn't work, and the heat in the warehouse was brutal. Workers moved fast, most of them quiet, tired. A few joked with each other, but the mood was tense. He saw Lena talking to a younger guy near the loading dock. His boot was torn, the sole flapping. You can't wear that, she snapped. Go home and change. It's all I got, he said. Then tape it up and keep moving. You know what Randy'll say. Jared's stomach turned. He found out who Randy was an hour later. A tall man with a shaved head, thick arms, and a red face that always looked angry. He didn't walk, he marched. Hey, you! Randy barked at Jared. You're the new sweep guy? Yes, sir. Well, this ain't a retirement home. Pick it up. And if you see anything leaking, mop it, don't report it. We don't need another damn inspection. Jared blinked. What if it's oil? Then mop it twice. He walked off. Later that afternoon, Jared saw something that made him stop cold. A woman maybe 19 slipped in the forklift lane. She caught herself, but her wrist bent weird. Lena rushed over. You good? The girl nodded, teeth clenched. Randy appeared behind them. What the hell happened? She slipped, Lena said. Randy looked at the girl. You can walk? She nodded. Then you can work. This ain't a daycare. Clean it up and get back on rotation. Jared's jaw tightened. The girl got up, shaking, and grabbed a broom. Jared swept near her. You okay? She didn't answer. He caught her name on her vest. Tina. I'm fine, she said, not looking at him. By the end of the shift, another guy had nearly dropped a crate because his gloves were torn. No replacements. Randy had walked by and laughed. Don't like it? Quit. Jared sat in his car that night, staring through the windshield. He didn't sleep much, and the next morning, he came in early. He needed to keep watching, see how deep this went. By the end of the week, he was going to know everything. By the third day, Jared was no longer just observing. He was embedded. He showed up 30 minutes before his shift started, not because he had to, but because he wanted to see what happened before the day actually began. What conversations took place when managers weren't listening, what corners were being cut, before the first truck even backed into the bay. The early crew was already in motion. A group of night shift holdovers were finishing up, their faces hollowed by exhaustion. One of them, a guy named Devante, leaned against a stack of pallets, hands shaking as he tried to tape a torn box. You good? Jared asked, keeping his voice low. Devante nodded quickly, but his eyes didn't match the answer. Didn't get a break last night. Randy said we were behind on case count. No time? Jared noted the way he winced as he bent over. Devante limped slightly. Heat rash crept up his neck. No one else seemed to notice or care. Inside, the floor was already buzzing. Forklifts beeped and reversed. Belts clattered, and Lena barked out assignments with clipped efficiency. She wasn't cruel, but her tone had no softness. She moved like someone who didn't trust the clock to be on her side. Eric, unload bay 4. They dumped 5 pallets last night and left them half-wrapped. Watch your back, one's leaning. Jared nodded and headed toward the bay. The pallet in question wasn't just leaning, it was seconds from collapsing. He stepped back, trying to stabilize it slowly when he heard a voice behind him. You touch it wrong. It's on you. A man in his 40s stood there. His name tag read, Luis. He had a cigarette tucked behind his ear and a long scar down the side of his neck. Been like that since last night, Luis added, not moving to help. Told Randy twice. He said if it falls, not his problem. Jared crouched, adjusted the lower boxes first, and slowly redistributed the weight. It was clumsy work, and his gloves had torn along the seam. No replacements were available again. He managed to get the pallet upright, but by then, sweat was pouring from his face. The fans above were still broken. No airflow, no shade from the skylights. It was suffocating. An hour later, Randy made his entrance for the day. He didn't clock in, he never did. Just walked through the loading gate, coffee in hand, barking orders before his boots even hit the warehouse floor. Luis, I want bay 3 cleared, and someone get that rookie off bay 4, he's slower than molasses. Jared didn't respond. He kept working, but he watched. Randy spent most of the morning pacing, shouting, and occasionally disappearing into the break room with his phone out. During a lull in the load schedule, Jared caught up with Lena near the inventory cages. Does Randy always stay off the line? She didn't look at him. He's management. Does he have a radio? No, doesn't want to be pinged all day. Who do you go to if something serious happens? She hesitated. Depends. If it's medical, we fill out the form. If it's harassment or safety, we just try to handle it ourselves unless it's big enough to make noise. Jared was about to ask more when a loud crash echoed from the back. A crate had dropped from a faulty lift. Jared and Lena ran toward the sound. A young woman named Priya stood frozen near the lift, both hands over her mouth. A crate had landed inches from where she'd been standing. The lift's bracket had snapped mid-raise. The operator, a teenager named Ryan, looked pale. It wasn't me, he said softly. It jerked. I didn't touch the lever. Randy arrived last, chewing something. He looked at the crate, then at Ryan. You screw up my lift? He asked. No, sir, the lever. I don't care. Shut it down. Use the backup. He turned to Priya. You hurt? She shook her head. Then back to work. He turned to leave. Shouldn't we report this? Jared asked, stepping forward carefully. That lift needs a safety check. Randy turned slowly. You want to file a report, rookie? Be my guest. You'll be waiting 4 hours while the floor bleeds money. Or you can shut up and stay useful. Jared locked eyes with him, but said nothing. That night, he didn't leave right after shift. Instead, he lingered near the parking lot, watching as workers filtered out, shoulders slumped, barely speaking. Lena sat on the curb, unlacing her boots like they were filled with cement. How long you been here? Jared asked. 4 years. Always been like this. She laughed once, hollow. No, used to be better. We had a manager named Carly, she gave a damn. Then she left. They brought in Randy, said he'd tighten the ship. Why stay? She shrugged. I've got a kid. And nowhere else that'll work around her school hours. The next morning, Jared arrived earlier than usual. He checked the lift that had failed the day before. It was still parked in the same spot. No tag, no lockout, no sign anyone had reported it. He searched the maintenance log in the dispatch office, just a clipboard with scrawled notes. The last entry for that lift was dated 3 weeks ago. No issues. He was about to leave the office when he heard voices near the hallway. Don't care if she's limping. She's not pulling numbers. You either write her up or I will. It was Randy's voice. The response was quieter. Luis. She's got a bone bruise. Can't stand more than an hour. Then she's dead weight. We're not a rehab center. Jared stepped back into the hallway. Randy saw him. Something you need? Eric? Just checking on shift start. Randy gave him a long stare, then walked off. Later that day, a woman named Katya was given 5 rows to pick by herself. It was a job for 2 people. She moved slowly, clearly in pain. Jared offered to help, but she waved him off. Already told Lena, nothing she can do, Randy's orders. By mid-afternoon, Katya collapsed near row 17. Jared and Lena rushed over. Katya's lips were pale, her breathing shallow. "Call an ambulance," Jared said. "I can drive her," Lena offered. "No, ambulance. She's dehydrated and overheated." Randy appeared moments later. "What's going on?" Jared stood. "She collapsed. We're calling for help." Randy looked irritated. "She's faking. She's been dragging all week." Jared stepped forward, voice sharp. "Back off." "You're not a doctor." Randy opened his mouth, but Lena had already dialed the number. Paramedics arrived 10 minutes later. Katya was unresponsive, pulse weak. They took her in an oxygen mask and stretcher. Jared watched the ambulance drive off. Something in him shifted. This wasn't a bad day. This was systemic. He looked around at the crew. No one made eye contact. They were used to this. Conditioned. That night, he made a single call. "I need you to fly in," he told his COO. "No press, no PR, just you, me, and a termination letter." Then he called HR, the real one. Not the ghost contact tucked into a break room binder. He wasn't waiting until Friday. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. Jared was already at the loading dock before sunrise. The air inside the warehouse sat thick and unmoving. The overhead lights humming to life one by one. He stood near the back wall, watching the crew trickle in, less like employees starting a new day, more like people bracing to survive another one. Luis walked in rubbing his shoulder, his uniform damp around the collar. Ryan, the teenager who'd had the lift failure, kept glancing toward the equipment row like it might bite him. No one joked, no one lingered. They clocked in and scattered. The ambulance from the day before had left a dent in everyone's rhythm. Jared caught Lena near the dry goods cage before shift assignments were handed out. "Katya?" he asked. "Heat exhaustion. They're keeping her for observation. She'll be out at least a week." "She going to get paid?" "Not unless someone up top signs off on medical leave." Jared didn't reply. Instead, he turned and walked toward the supervisor's office. He'd been inside once, briefly. It was cleaner than the rest of the warehouse, its wall-mounted board covered in metrics no one on the floor ever saw. Randy was already inside, door closed, blinds partially drawn. He was on the phone, laughing. At precisely 7, the break room door opened and a man in a charcoal jacket stepped in. Middle-aged, lean, wire-rimmed glasses. His name was Thomas Keller, Jared's COO, and one of the few executives Jared trusted to walk the floor without needing a script. Keller didn't wait for introductions. He stepped through the warehouse like someone reading a crime scene, quietly, methodically, eyes scanning every corner. Jared met him near the lockers. "Back office?" Keller asked. "Straight through." They walked in together. Randy was halfway through a donut and didn't look up until the door shut behind them. "You lost, or—" His sentence stalled mid-bite. Jared pulled off his badge and glasses and set them beside the desk. Randy's mouth closed. He stood up slowly. "You're Alden." "That's right." Keller didn't speak. He just opened a folder and placed it on the desk. Inside were printed complaints, shift rosters, maintenance logs, and a photo of Katya on the stretcher being let out. Randy stayed silent, eyes darting. "You falsified safety records," Jared said, voice even. "You ignored equipment failures, you verbally harassed employees, and you denied medical breaks to avoid slowing productivity. I run a tight shift. You asked for numbers, I delivered them. You delivered injuries, fear, people collapsing on concrete floors. No one forced them to stay." Jared leaned forward, resting both hands on the desk. "They stayed because they have rent, kids, no options, and you use that to grind them down." "Listen," Randy started, tone shifting. "It's not what you think. This place was a mess before I took it over. I had to clean house. You want numbers without pressure? That doesn't exist." You're done, Keller said, stepping forward. Effective immediately. You'll be escorted out. Security's already been called. You have no idea what you're doing, Randy snapped. This place won't run without me. We'll take that chance, Jared said flatly. Security met them at the side door. Randy left without another word. Back inside, Jared gathered the staff near the break room. Not everyone could leave their post at once. But those on the first rotation came quickly, eyeing him warily. Lena stood near the back, arms crossed. Jared didn't stand on a chair. He didn't shout. He just spoke. My name's Jared Alden. I own this company. For the last week, I've been working here undercover. I've seen what you've been dealing with, and I'm not okay with any of it. The room stayed silent. Randy's gone. Effective this morning. He won't be back. That got a reaction. Not cheers, just stillness. The kind that meant people weren't sure whether to trust what they were hearing. I saw people working through pain, ignored when they needed help, treated like they were disposable. That ends now. He looked at Lena. Starting today, Lena is acting floor manager, temporary until we get someone in full time. She'll report directly to me and Thomas. Lena blinked, stunned. I haven't. You've been doing the job already. You earned it. She didn't answer, just gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Jared turned back to the group. We're bringing in an industrial safety team this afternoon. Every piece of equipment will be evaluated. Anything unsafe will be locked out until cleared. A hand went up. It was Devante. What about heat? Fans haven't worked in months. HVAC contractors are scheduled for tomorrow morning. In the meantime, we're installing portable units this afternoon. Another voice from the side. Does that mean we get breaks? You'll get scheduled cool downs every 2 hours until the units are in place. No exceptions. Anyone who violates that policy will answer directly to me. The questions kept coming, each one more cautious than the last. Will Katya be paid? Yes. Will Randy still have access to our files? No, his credentials have been revoked. Are the cameras real? Someone muttered. Yes, and we're reviewing the last 2 weeks of footage. The meeting ended without applause, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from people recalibrating what they thought was possible. By noon, 2 fans had been delivered. Temporary, loud, but better than nothing. Jared worked alongside the floor team, unpacking them. Lena coordinated assignments, pairing newer staff with experienced pickers to avoid overload. When breaks came, people hesitated then took them. Not because they trusted the new rule, but because Jared was walking the line, clipboard in hand, making sure they did. That afternoon, he watched Ryan help Priya re-sort a damaged crate. Their pace was slower than before, but more careful. Ryan glanced over at Jared once, eyes wary. You saw the footage? He asked. I did. It wasn't me. That lift's been sticking for weeks. I know. You did the right thing. Ryan nodded once and returned to the crate. Jared walked past the lift row. The faulty unit was locked out. A red tag across the controls. Maintenance had already pulled the hydraulic logs. It would be repaired or removed. Near Bay 6, Luis was reorganizing a spill kit station. Jared approached. Was there ever a time you liked working here? Jared asked. Luis paused. Yeah, before it all got heavy, before people got scared to speak. I'm sorry it got that far. Luis looked at him carefully. You fixing it for good? Or just while you're watching? For good. Luis gave a short nod, then went back to work. As the day closed, Jared met privately with Lena in the back office. The paperwork for her temporary position was already signed. She sat across from him, still in her vest, hair pulled back, hands folded tightly. I don't know how to be a manager on paper, she said. I never went to school for it. I just work. Good. We need people who work. She looked at him, unsure. I'll get you training, support, whatever you need, but I want you to know you've already earned their respect. That's the part that can't be taught. She swallowed hard, then nodded. Outside, the sun dipped low behind the shipping yard. The warehouse lights flickered as the night crew began filtering in. Jared didn't leave right away. He stood near the loading bay, watching the lines move, slower and steadier than the days before. The chaos hadn't vanished, but something else had taken its place. Order, boundaries, a sense that someone, finally, was paying attention. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The following Monday, the Jefferson warehouse opened under new expectations. Not new policies, those take time, but expectations. Jared hadn't vanished. He returned in plain clothes, no vest, no clipboard, just present, watching, listening, holding people accountable not with speeches, but with action. The first order of business was a closed-door meeting with the remaining shift supervisors. 3 had served under Randy. All had different reputations, different degrees of involvement. Jared sat at the head of the small table in the admin trailer, sleeves rolled up. "Let's talk about what leadership looks like here now," he began. One of them, a guy named Marcus with a shaved head and tired eyes, crossed his arms. "I just did what I was told. I didn't push people. I just kept the line moving." "You logged false maintenance statuses," Jared replied. "You signed off on equipment that hadn't been inspected in weeks." Marcus looked down. "We were told not to hold up output." "You're done," Jared said. "You knew better." No argument followed. Security waited at the door. The second, a woman named Danielle, sat stiffly, hands clasped. "I reported the broken fans 4 times. "I saw your emails," Jared said. "You pushed. You're staying. But you're getting retraining. You'll be reporting to Lena for now." She nodded once, relief flickering across her face. The third, Jonah, kept his voice low. "I never liked how he ran the floor, but I didn't fight him." "That's on me." "It is," Jared said. "But I've seen you step in when it counted. I saw you hand off your gloves to Devontae last week and finish his line out of rotation. That wasn't for show." Jonah looked up, surprised. "You want to stay?" Jared asked. Jonah nodded. "I do." "Then earn it." With the team reset, Jared turned his focus to infrastructure. Portable cooling units were running now, loud but effective. The industrial HVAC contractor had begun prepping for a permanent overhaul. That would take weeks, but at least the crew wasn't working in suffocating heat anymore. The lift that had nearly injured Priya was replaced, not repaired. Replaced completely with a newer model, tagged and certified. The old one was dismantled in the back lot, piece by piece. Jared made sure the crew saw it removed with their own eyes. Lena's transition into management wasn't smooth. It wasn't supposed to be. She had never held authority over the same people she used to stand beside, and the weight of that shift landed quickly. "You look like you haven't eaten in days," Jared said, catching her outside the dispatch station late Thursday evening. "I've got 3 new hires who don't know the system, and 2 people out with legit injuries. I'm trying to shuffle stations without overloading anyone." "Then shuffle light," Jared replied. "The product can wait longer than a person can." She nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Lena," he added, "you're not here to protect the numbers. You're here to protect your team. If that means late shipments, we'll absorb the hit." She sat down on the concrete step, silent for a moment. "How did it get this bad?" she asked. "Because I stopped looking," Jared said. "And people like Randy thrive when no one's watching." That weekend, HR ran private interviews with every employee, not surveys, real interviews, with someone from headquarters and a third-party observer. Jared didn't attend. He didn't need to. He already knew what they'd say. He'd lived it. The results came back Monday morning. Patterns emerged. Multiple workers had raised safety concerns in the past year. None had ever been followed up on. 3 had filed informal complaints about Randy's behavior. 2 were quietly reassigned. 1 had been let go within a week. The records didn't say why. Jared called those 3 employees back. 2 had already moved on to other jobs. The third, a woman named Talia, had been let go after she refused to operate a lift she believed was unsafe. He found her number in the system and called her himself. "You don't know me," she said cautiously. "I do now," Jared said. "I want to offer you your job back, with back pay, and an apology." There was silence on the other end. Eventually she replied, "I'll think about it." "That's fair." Inside the warehouse, things weren't perfect. The workload was still high. The crew was still short-staffed. But there was a difference in how people carried themselves. The dragging pace, the resigned eyes, those were fading. Jonah had started rotating new hires through short cycles, giving them time to learn without being thrown straight into high-volume lanes. Danielle had flagged a wiring issue in Bay 2 and shut it down before anyone could get hurt. No one questioned her authority this time. One afternoon, Priya approached Jared near the repack station. I heard what you did, with Randy, with Katya. He paused his walk. I didn't do it alone. No, she said, but no one's ever done it at all. She hesitated, then added, if you're serious about keeping this place right, you should show up unannounced, not every week, just when no one expects it. That's the plan, Jared said. She nodded and walked off. Later, he met with Keller in the side office. Think Jefferson's out of the woods? Keller asked. No, Jared said, but they're not alone in the dark now. Keller folded his arms. We've got 17 more centers. You want to do this again? Jared didn't answer right away. I want to do it better, he said. This wasn't about one bad manager. It was about what we allowed to happen while chasing metrics. He looked out the window at the floor below. Jonah was helping reconfigure the loading schedule to account for Katya's absence. Lena stood with a clipboard, reviewing assignments with 2 new hires. They weren't fast, but they weren't panicking either. Jared turned back to Keller. We rebuild, from the floor up. That week, a memo went out to every warehouse in the company, not from PR, from Jared himself. It outlined new safety protocols, new reporting chains, and a new standard. Every facility would undergo a full systems audit within the next 90 days. Every manager would be retrained, and every employee would have open access to a third-party hotline to report mistreatment with guaranteed anonymity and follow-up. The note ended with a simple line, written without polish. Speed means nothing if people get hurt on the way. Inside Jefferson, the break room now held a real suggestion box, not locked, not ignored, and Lena read every note herself. One morning, Jared found a folded piece of paper taped to his rental car's window. No name, just handwriting. Don't forget us when the next crisis shows up. He kept it in his wallet. That Friday, he walked the floor one last time before flying back to headquarters. He stopped by the dock where Devante was staging outbound crates. You good? Jared asked. Devante nodded. Better? Anything you need? A second pair of gloves wouldn't hurt. Jared laughed once. We'll order triple. As he stepped into the sunlight, he looked back at the warehouse. It wasn't fixed, but it was healing, and this time, he wouldn't let it break again.